With Resident Evil 9 fast approaching on February 27, 2026, and we are expected a Resident Evil showcase sometime in January, I want to discuss the possibility of which past protagonists will appear in Resident Evil 9, aside from Leon. And from what we understand from some of the producers and developers from Capcom, they stated that for other characters, please look forward to playing the game, effectively teasing us that there might be more Resident Evil characters joining Leon and Grace in RE9. Now, of course, this could be just a swerve, and they are not going to introduce other characters. I believe there are some instances, some proof that people have garnered up, myself included, of some characters returning in Resident Evil 9. And we're just going to go over through a list of the characters that some people have theorized or expected to return in Resident Evil 9. And I'll give you my take and essentially if I believe that they will return and how likely it is that they will return. Alright? So the first character I want to discuss is Ashley. Now, some of you may know Ashley from Resident Evil 4. We saved her. Ashley is a unique character to think about when you want to reintroduce a past protagonist into the Resident Evil franchise. Now, back in with Resident Evil 4 OG, it was very unlikely that Ashley would ever return to a future game. However, with RE4 Remake, there is a slight chance that she could come back. During the game and during the island levels of the remake, she discusses about the possibility, or playfully discusses the possibility of her joining Leon as a special agent to help with fighting bioweapons.
You know, I was thinking, we work well together, don't we?
I guess so.
Right? Maybe someday I'll become an agent like you. What do you think? We could protect the US from any and all threats.
Is that right? Well, either way, first we have to make it out of here.
You're no fun.
Now, of course, this could just merely be her teasing, and Capcom doesn't really want to do anything in regards to it. It was just a playful jab that people who maybe are Ashley fans, make them a little giddy about the possibilities of her returning. I don't believe there is a strong chance that she does return. Now, it will be really cool if she does return as a special agent. I just don't know how strong of a chance that is. I think it's not even anything higher than maybe 5%. So I just don't see Ashley, and really the only proof that you technically have is, of course, her connection with Leon and that little tease, playfully teasing that she wants to become a special agent. Whether or not Capcom actually does anything in regards to that, I just don't see it, right? So I don't think Ashley's going to return or be one of the protagonists that will return in Resident Evil 9. So let's move on to the next less likely chance of returning, and that is one of my favorites, Wesker. Now, this whole idea of Wesker returning has been going around since Resident Evil 5 because many Wesker fans, myself included, they didn't like the fact that they killed him off. They didn't like Capcom killing off Wesker. The main reason why I didn't personally like it is because Wesker's such a cool villain. He's like one of the most iconic video game villains of all time. You know, he looks cool. He has such a great villain persona surrounding him. Resident Evil 5 showcased just how damn evil and cool he is. So him getting killed off in Resident Evil 5 is kind of a disappointment. And ever since then, people have been hoping that, it was a fake out. It was a fake out death, and that eventually Wesker will return in some grand fashion. Some have pointed out to a few photos from the Resident Evil 9 trailers where it showed a kind of resemblance of a chin and a smile that is very closely resembles to Wesker. I don't think Wesker's going to return no matter how much I wish he did, because I still think that he should be the bona fide villain of the Resident Evil franchise as we move forward. It's just very unlikely. Now, there's also a possibility that, maybe his body was experimented on, maybe someone from the BSAA or some sort of government official finds his body and then they start experimenting on him and then thus creates a new type of virus or something like that. I don't know. There's always a possibility of that. I just don't see Wesker ever coming back unless he's either a dead body or in some form of way Elpis, the virus or disease in Resident Evil 9, finds a way to bring him back to life. Like that's some sort of virus that, grants him, a return to life. Because at the end of the day, the one thing that Resident Evil, and especially the viruses that were created, was because Spencer wanted to be immortal. He wanted to live forever. So there's always a possibility. I just think it's very low. I think, honestly, it might be lower than Ashley returning. And it's just, as a Wesker fan, I really would love to have him back, but I just don't see any possibility of that ever occurring. So let's move on to the more likely individuals and past protagonists that might return to Resident Evil 9. First off, we're going to start with Ada Wong.
Looking for something?
Now, there has nothing been confirming Ada coming back at any point in any of the trailers, but of course it is a Leon story. Whenever there's Leon, Ada's going to be slowly right behind, right? And we do know that she initially was supposed to be in Resident Evil 8. We know that because of the concept arts that you unlock after you play Resident Evil 8. And eventually they decided to not put her in there because it would conflict with a lot of the story, with a lot of the lore. It just wouldn't fit. So they decided to just can Ada, who at the end of the day would have just helped Ethan. Just because of that and the fact that she appeared in almost any mainline game that Leon was a part of, it's very likely that Ada will make an appearance in Resident Evil 9. In what kind of capacity? Probably the same type of capacity that she was in RE4, RE6, where she plays more of a supporting character, like a character that's in the shadows. That's likely the scenario you're going to get with Ada. Who knows? Maybe she gets a bigger role. Maybe, Leon and Ada finally confront their feelings for each other. Leon's not getting any younger, but I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but I do fully expect that Ada will be a part of Resident Evil 9. We just haven't seen her yet. So I think Ada is very likely to reappear in Resident Evil 9. So let's move on to the next character. A character that many are predicting will show up, specifically because from the trailers it certainly sounds like she will be back. And that is Sherry Birkin. The whole point of Resident Evil 9 is going back to the roots of Raccoon City. About Elpis, about Umbrella. And Leon is going to go back to Raccoon City in some form. I don't know in what way, because the city looks like it's goddamn devastated. But it's all about confronting your past. That's what it is. Grace's story is about confronting her past, about her mom. Leon's going to be about, the very dreadful night that he first started becoming a goddamn exterminator of bioweapons. And more than likely, someone else connected to Raccoon City is also going to be part of it. And aside from Claire and Jill, Sherry definitely has a huge connection with Raccoon City. After all, her parents are the ones who created the G virus, right? And experimented with the T virus and stuff like that. And part of the reason everything went to shit in Raccoon City is also partially their fault. And I think Sherry returning there to confront her past would fit well with the theme that they're trying to portray with Resident Evil 9. So I truly think that Sherry is a possibility. Now, I do also want to point out, because when I first saw the trailer at the Game Awards, I thought it was Hunnigan. Obviously I thought it was Hunnigan. But slowly, after looking back and watching it over and over again and hearing that voice, it sounds very familiar, right? Here's an example from the RE9 trailer of her voice, and also an example of RE6 Sherry's voice. And I want you to hear how similar they sound.
Leon's not just anyone. He saved my life back in Raccoon City. You there, Leon? Don't do anything stupid.
You can kind of hear a similarity to the voice, right? It does seem like the voice in RE9 is a little bit older. The tone of it is a little bit older, which makes sense because Sherry will be old in here. Is this Eden Regal voicing Sherry in Resident Evil 9? Is she back to voice Sherry Birkin in Resident Evil 9? We won't know. There are some shots that showcase like someone with shorter hair, maybe a little blonde, but it's very hard to tell simply just because the lighting doesn't help really much. the lighting does kind of show what looks like apparently blonde hair. We don't know. Some are even arguing that it is Ashley. That could be also the case. But I think Sherry has a good chance of returning just based off very similar voice, you know, the shots of what we can see of someone with blonde hair. So maybe, I think there is a good chance that Sherry could return, and I think that would be great. It fits with the theme of Resident Evil 9, facing, you know, the past that haunted you, and just, it'll be nice to see Sherry again. You know, Sherry Birkin, a agent from Resident Evil 6, you know, helping Leon, trying to do whatever it is that he needs to do. Maybe he is infected, maybe he does have Elpis and he's trying to find a cure, right? So I do think there's a strong possibility that Sherry will return. And I think that would be cool, I think that would be dope, and it would be nice to see, you know, Sherry, who we haven't seen since RE6, you know? So I think that would be great to see, and definitely something that I will be excited for. Now let's move on to Jill Valentine. A lot of people, a lot of Resident Evil fans have been clamoring for Jill to finally return to a Resident Evil game. Whether it's a protagonist role, and I know a lot of people were upset that Leon was essentially the second protagonist instead of Jill, and I would really love to see Jill again in a mainline game, right? As a playable protagonist or something, you know? The last time we saw her was literally in Resident Evil Death Island, which apparently is canon to the lore. It just sucks that she is not in any form or way returning into a prominent role. Does that mean that she will not return in Resident Evil 9? Well, she is one of the major characters that was really affected by what happened in Raccoon City. She had 2 games, Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 3, and it would fit that she would return to, you know, live through and like experience and just fight with the past and try to do something very similar to what Leon is doing, right? So I really would love Jill. Whether or not she does return, I think it's lower than either Ada or Sherry. I think it's much lower. I would love if Jill did return, but there hasn't been any proof. There hasn't been any sort of like hints at that, and you know, that's great, because if she is in the game and it's a really hidden secret, then yeah, I would love to see her finally return. I just don't know if they will do it. I don't know what Jill has been doing since Death Island, and maybe she's helping out with Chris. I don't know, because we do know at the end of Resident Evil 8 something's going on with the BSAA, so who knows, maybe she's working with Chris now to take down the BSAA. When are we ever going to get that plotline? Who the hell knows? But I don't know. It's very hard to say whether or not Jill will return. I will love if she did, because it's been a long time since we saw her in a game. I just think it's more likely than either Ashley or Wesker, simply just for the fact that this game is all about, you know, facing your past, and Jill's past does involve Raccoon City. So I think she has a higher chance, but not as high as either Ada or Sherry returning. And this essentially goes the same thing with the next character, which is Claire. I don't see Claire returning. Definitely higher than Ashley or Wesker. I just don't see it. I think any character that has some sort of connection with Raccoon City has a higher chance of returning than Ashley or even Wesker, because let's face it, Wesker could because he does have connection to Raccoon City, but he's dead, and Capcom doesn't want to revive him for whatever reason. But like, god damn it, please, he's one of the relatively fun. But the point is, I just don't see Claire returning as well. There's nothing hinting at it. There's nothing that we know. The only thing we do know is that the developers keep saying stay tuned, because you never know who might else show up, which could mean a lot of characters, or it could just be one character like Sherry. So we don't know. So I think Jill and Claire, both of them, have a much lower chance than Ada and Sherry. I think at this moment, Ada is the most likely to show up, because again, it is a Leon game, so of course. But I don't know. I just don't know if either of them will return. Now comes the last character that I want to discuss. Rebecca. Everybody loves Rebecca. She's great. She finds cures. And it will be also really cool to see her return. We do know that there is a Resident Evil 0 remake coming out at some point, or in development, and it could be a good way to link up Resident Evil 9 to Resident Evil 0 by having Rebecca involved, we do need to have a character to find a cure for Elpis if that's what part of the Resident Evil 9 plotline is going to be about. But of course, you do also have Grace. While she is a forensic scientist for the FBI, there's a possibility she might know how to, you know, create a cure for the Elpis virus. But I think Rebecca could have a strong possibility of returning. She has a connection to Raccoon City, of course, and Umbrella, and just the possibility of her finding a cure for Elpis. That's very well possible. It's also very well possible that the person we see communicating with Leon is Rebecca. You know, it could be Sherry, it could be Rebecca. They have very similar hairstyle. Maybe the same voice actors who did Sherry from Resident Evil 6 is not doing Rebecca. I do think Rebecca does have a much better chance than Jill or Claire returning, just for the simple fact that Elpis likely needs someone to create a cure for, especially if Leon is infected with it. Overall, I think the likeliest characters to return in Resident Evil 9 from the past protagonists are Sherry, Ada, and Rebecca. The least likely are Ashley, Wesker, Jill, and Claire. Which, you know, kind of sucks because I would love to see Jill or Claire again in a Resident Evil game. Now, could all of them return? Whoa, that would be some cool motherfucking Avenger type shit. I would love that a lot, and I really think that would be really cool. We did kind of get an Avengers type of team up in Resident Evil Death Island. It is a movie though, so it's kind of like, it would be great to have it in the game. Now, I know people will probably compare it to Resident Evil 6 and, you know, how much of a debacle the story was for that. I think if you are able to condense the story in a way where they could all get like some, like, even smaller roles in Resident Evil 9, I think that would be perfectly fine. You know, maybe you have like a final team up with the final boss. I don't know, but we'll see. But I do think that out of all the characters, or out of all the past protagonists, Sherry, Ada, and Rebecca are the three likeliest to make a return for Resident Evil 9. The other characters, not so much. So let me know who you want to return, or who you believe will return in Resident Evil 9, and let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching my video. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of my Resident Evil content, and I'll see you guys next time. Remember, stay healthy and don't let that zombie bite you. Alright, bye bye everyone.